Start him up, Sage.
Hi, I am Space Boy's Robo Dog. Would you like to play with me?
Walk this way, Sage. He's looking for you. He's found you. Gets real happy when he gets close. Okay, in today's lesson we're going to look at building the first part of the Robo Dog. Basically we're just going to build a robot that's going to be able to follow us around. And I've just used the simple bot design, 2 drive wheels at the front and a little drag wheel at the back. And all I've done is I've mounted 2 ultrasonic sensors up the front, both pointing at the side a little bit. And they're quite easy to do. When I mounted them, instead of putting those down even like that, put them down with one between the EV3 and the bar. So instead of sitting straight, he then sits at a bit of an angle. Alright? Now what we're going to do is we're going to make a 4-way switch. We're going to have 4 options. Option number 1, both eyes can see something in front of them. If both eyes see something in front of it, then the dog goes straight forward. Option 2, the left eye sees something but the right eye doesn't, then the dog arcs forward to the left. Option 3, the right eye can see something but the left eye can't, so the dog arcs forward to the right. Or option 4, neither eyes can see anything, so the dog just spins around on the spot till it can see something. And that way the dog will follow us around. Something straight in front of us, it goes straight ahead, something to the left but nothing to the right, then it'll arc to the left, and that way it'll have the perception of following us around. Now, in order to do this, when we make up these switches, instead of one thing being true, 2 things need to be true. So before we were doing the line follower, we're only testing when one sensor was over the line. Now we have to test information from both sensors, and we use the logic operators for that. So when we want to see something in both eyes, we will say when the left eye can see something and the right eye can see something, we go straight ahead. When the left eye can see something but not the right one, then we arc forward to the left. When the right one can see something and not the left one, then we arc forward to the right. And if none of those are positive, then it spins around the spot. All right, so we're going to, in this lesson, learn how to join 2 tests together using our logic operators. Okay, here's the whole program. Like I said, we have a 4-way switch. We have 4 options. In order to do that, we put a switch inside a switch inside a switch. So it gives us 3 switches, will give us 4 different options. The first switch tests to see if something is seen in both eyes, and if so, it goes straight ahead. The second switch tests to see if nothing is seen in the left but something seen in the right, then arc forward to the right. The last switch tests to see if there's something seen in the left but nothing in the right, then arc forward to the left. If that's not true, then just spin around on the spot. Okay, what I've done here is I've zoomed in on the code before the first switch. And the first 4 blocks, the yellow one, the red one, then the yellow one, then the red one, is just to read the sensor and store the result in the variables. So the first yellow one is an ultrasonic sensor, and I've set it to compare distance in centimeters. And then I've set it to less than 80 centimeters. So what happens is any time there is something less than 80 centimeters in front of it, it will put out true. Anytime there isn't something closer than 80 centimeters, it will put out false. And of course I have it set to port 1 because that sensor is plugged into port 1. And then I've put a variable there to store that result. And I've set that variable to right logic, and I've named that variable left eye. And then I pull a wire out of the equal sign and into that variable. So that variable will store true if there's something closer than 80 centimeters in front of the left eye. If there isn't something closer than 80 centimeters in front of the left eye, it will have false stored in it. Now I've done the same with the right eye, but this time it's going to be with port 4. It's going to be in compare distance in centimeters less than 80 centimeters. I'm going to pull another variable block out. I'm going to set it to right logic, call it right eye, and then I'm going to pull a wire out of the equal sign and into that variable. So now I have stored in both those variables either true or false, depending whether something is in front of the sensor or not. Then I'm going to use that for the whole rest of the program for deciding which way these switches are going to go. So the first, I'm going to put a switch in there, and the very first switch I'm going to set to switch via logic. And then I'll pull out my two variable blocks. My first variable block is going to be set to read logic, and it's going to be set to left eye. My second variable block is going to be read logic and right eye, so I can read the values out of these. Then I'm going to put in a logic operator, and the logic operator we're going to use is AND. For it to return true, both inputs must be true. If either one of the inputs isn't true, it will return false. So it will only return true when both the left eye and the right eye are true. So I pull my wires out of the left eye into A, and out of the right eye into B, and then out of the equal sign up into the switch. So that switch will only switch to the positive side when something is in the left eye and the right eye. And then of course up the top I put a little motor block in. I set it to turn on, to drive straight ahead. I've chose my classic 30 power, and I've got it set to port A and D because that's where my motors are plugged in. Okay, moving on to the second part of our code. We're going to look at the second switch, and we're going to set it to switch via logic again. Now this one has to see nothing in the left eye but something in the right eye. So we do that by pulling out our variable and setting it to read logic left eye. Then we're going to pull out a logic operator block, and this time set it to not. It will only ever give out true when the variable that's going in it is set to false. So for it to get true, it needs a false to go in. Then we'll pull out our variable block for our right eye, and also our logic operator, another logic operator block that we're going to set to AND. And we're going to pull the result out of the not block and the right block and put that into our AND block. And then the result of that up into our switch. So when we read it, we say left eye not and right eye. So the switch will only switch to the top when the left is negative and the right is positive. And then it goes up to the top. And of course up the top, I put a motor block where it does a shallow turn to the right. So I'm going to set it to be turned on to about steering of about 30 degrees to the right, power of about 30 in port A and D because that's where my motors are plugged in. Then we'll have a look at the last switch. The last switch is very similar. It's set to logic as well, and we're going to pull out our left eye variable set to read logic left eye, pull out our right eye variable set to read logic right eye. We'll put in another logic operator block set to not. This time we're going to pull out the right eye into the not. And then we're going to pull out another logic operator block and set it to AND. And of course the result coming from the left eye and the not block will go into the AND block. And then out of that, it goes into our switch. So our switch now will only switch to the positive side, providing the left eye is true and the right eye is false. So then we put our motor block up the top there. This time I'm going to set it to be turned on. This time we're going to set it to turn negative 30, i.e. turn to the left, power of 30, ports A and D. And down the bottom, if that's false, we want it to spin around on the spot. So we're going to turn it on, and we're going to turn it to steer negative 100, 30 power A and D. Okay, here she is in action. You can't see anything. I walk in a bit closer, he sees me. I walk to this side, you follow me this way. Walk to this side, you follow me this way. If I completely run away and he can't see me, he'll spin around looking for me, comes back where he can see me, and he follows me around. Pretty cool, huh?